Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Watches TV, where I watch all the TV shows, and then I come over here and I talk about them, and I have a good one for you. A really, really good one. I'm actually kind of surprised. I started it last night, and I thought, I don't know that I'm going to like this, and I just couldn't stop watching it. And that is a 2022 documentary called Hell of a Cruise. Now, I don't know why I'm just finding out about this documentary now. I have not heard about this documentary before. In fact, when I saw it come up on Peacock, I thought, it was like, I think it was suggested to me or something. When I saw it come up on Peacock, I thought, is this like Poop Cruise 2.0? I was like, I watched that documentary, the train wreck documentary on Netflix, Poop Cruise. I was like, is this like another, because you know, like when they do like a documentary on Netflix and they do it on like, you know, all the other sites as well. And then we got 5 documentaries of like the Fire Festival, and they all basically say the same thing. Anyway, so I was like, is this like Poop Cruise 2.0? I had no idea. And now, I watched a little bit of the trailer for it. So when I watch trailers for shows or movies, I don't like to watch the whole thing. I only watch like 10 or 20 seconds of it to see if I'm interested in it or not. Because I just don't want anything ruined for me. So, I mean, sometimes I'll watch the whole trailer, but very rarely. So I started watching the trailer for this last night, and I realized that this had nothing to do with the Poop Cruise. So I was like, oh, I want to watch this. Well, let me tell you, when I started watching this last night, so I had watched a movie from my movie channel first. I watched Princess Bride for the very first time ever. So right after I make this video today, I will be reacting to my first time ever watching The Princess Bride on my movie channel, Peter's Movie Reviews, which is linked in the description box below. So I knew I was going to watch that, and then I wanted to watch, I'm currently watching The Fall on Prime, and I'm on the 3rd season. I was like, okay, I want to finish this. So I was like, I'm just going to watch, like, it was getting late. I was like, I'm just going to watch, like, 15 minutes of this Hell of a Cruise. Because I had another video that I was going to make for today. And over here. And I was like, I'm going to watch, like, 15 minutes of it, and then I'll stop it at 15 minutes. I think the movie is, like, an hour and 28 minutes or something. So I really, like, I got to the 15-minute mark, and I was like, okay, if I just watch a half an hour of this, and tomorrow I can watch the last hour of it, and then I can watch, then I can react to it on Wednesday. I could not stop watching this documentary, you guys. That very, very rarely ever happens to me with any documentary, true crime or otherwise, like that I literally cannot stop watching a documentary. I mean, honest to God, I was like, okay, just 10 more minutes. Just 10 more, I'm going to watch just 10 more minutes of this documentary. And then I was like, okay, you've got 20 minutes left of it. It was that interesting to me. And I think what's interesting about it is that I've never really heard much about it. And and I'm sure when I say that, people will be like, it was all over social media. I'm not a TikTok person, okay? I'm not a TikTok person. If you follow my Instagram is rescue animals and little cartoon drawings of animals that live in trees. Like, I don't follow a lot of that kind of stuff. So I had never heard of this story. Apparently, it was a big news story on social media. I had a huge news story everywhere. But I hadn't really heard anything about it. So I went into it not really knowing anything about this story. So like I said, it's a documentary. It came out in 2022. It's currently airing on Peacock. And it is called Hell of a Cruise. Let me read you a little bit of the synopsis to you guys. So that way you'll know before I get into my reaction to it. And I'm not going to ruin it for anybody because I don't know how many people have seen this. And well, there's not really anything to ruin about it. But Hell of a Cruise is a 2022 documentary that chronicles a true story of the Diamond Princess, which is a Carnival ship, cruise ship in early 2020 when the coronavirus spread among passengers and crew, turning a vacation into a nightmare. The film explores the experiences of those on board, focusing on the events that led to the ship's quarantine in Yokohama, Japan, which became an early super spreader event. It also examines the government's and cruises industry's responses to the unfolding crisis. The focus of the documentary centers on the Diamond Princess cruise ship and the early stages of the pandemic. The narrative, it uses passenger shot footage and an anonymous crew member's account to tell the story because she wants to work on a cruise ship again sometime. I'm telling you right now, with Poop Cruise and this one and the other one where they were out at sea for like 5 days. I've never been on no cruise, and I am never going on no cruise. And so it goes in and talks about the director and all this kind of stuff. What is going on with these cruise documentaries? I mean, like, did all these directors get together and just decide we're going to ruin the cruise industry? Like, I never listen. I know people that love cruises. I mean, my cousin Caroline, she loves a cruise. I know people that love cruises, okay? I just That kind of scared. I saw Titanic. Okay, like, I don't need that. I just don't. I don't know. Like, that's just a lot of people. And, like, I mean, the only thing I've ever seen on a cruise that even kind of sound, well, casinos and buffets, but the only thing that even kind of looks like, have you ever seen I think it's the Four Seasons or the Ritz-Carlton cruise? It's got like 10 cabins on it. Oh my God. Now, I would maybe go on that cruise ship. I would maybe go on that cruise ship. But the one thing was, this one couple they interviewed said, you just get to unpack all your stuff once, and then you can, like, go and see, like, 10 destinations. I'm like, well, that's kind of fun. But, like, even having to get up early in the morning to, like, you know, deport off the boat and walk around all day long. I'm a napper. Like, I'd be so tired by 2 o'clock. Do you know what I mean? Like, none of it sounds delightful to me at all. And then every one of these cruises are just cheap as shit. I mean, they just are. The food looks cheap. The boats look cheap. The rooms look horrible. Like, I would never want to go on none of these cruise ships, okay? So I don't know what all these, and I did not realize I was going to be watching so many documentaries about cruise ships this year. I think this is my 3rd or 4th one. So this documentary was interesting, okay? It starts off with these 4 students, these 4 guys. They're probably in their late 20s, early 30s, and maybe I'm aging them out. I don't know, maybe they're in their mid-20s. I don't know. But they're students studying in China. And so they decide to go for the Chinese New Year on this Diamond Princess cruise ship. It actually follows, they had a lot of, like, eyewitness accounts on this of a lot of people that stayed on this cruise ship. So the cruise sails, and as it, like, goes to port, it's like a 14-day cruise, is at the beginning of the pandemic. It's at the very, very beginning of the pandemic. And so they find out that when they were in Hong Kong, somebody deported and came back on that was tested positive. And so then they know that it's on the ship. Well, when that happens, they decide, like, the captain, I mean, it's hard to watch this because you almost kind of want to blame somebody for it, but having all of us, like, lived through that period, obviously not on a cruise ship. At the end of this documentary, though, I will tell you that they cite these statistics that are, like, really rather unbelievable. It's like 20% of the deaths that occurred were all from, like, cruise ships. Like, I was, like, blown away by these statistics at the end of it. It was, like, something like 17% of, like, the initial cases all came from cruise ships. I was like, are you kidding me? Because I wish they had shown those at the beginning. Because if they had shown those statistics at the beginning, I think it would have made you, like, be like, this is a more, I mean, when you're watching it, it's just a lot of people kind of, like, quarantine and hanging out in their cabins and stuff like that, so you don't really think it's that serious. But when those statistics came up at the end, I was like, damn. There's no way to watch this documentary and not at the same time be, like, thinking about your own experience with that, if that makes, you know, on lockdown, like, thinking of what you went through at the lockdown. There's just no way that you can. So you bring in your own experience to that. Well, what happened was that this guy got off in Hong Kong and came back on and tested positive. So they decide that they're going to quarantine everybody on the ship. And so they're in port, okay? And they can see ambulances coming up every single day. And they can see medics getting on the ship and all this kind of stuff. And they're starting to test everybody. But then everybody's quarantined to their room. Like, they cannot get out of their room. And so this happens a little bit later on. But then, like, the first day after that, like, one of the students that's on there, one of the 4 guys. So there's, like, the main people they follow are, like, these 4 students that are together. The one guy gets sick, like, right away. And he's like, but he never tests positive, which is interesting. Like, he shares later. You just kind of assume he's sick, but he never tests positive. And then they're, like, all in a room together. And then there's 3 other couples. There's like there's like a parent and their 2 kids that are on these bunk beds. That, to me, they were, like, stuck in there for, like, I mean, it was they don't really ever say, like, how many days they're in there. They count it off, but I think it was, like, ended up being, like, 20 or 30 days that they were locked on this cruise ship. So they're at port. So everybody that's on the port side can, like, get on their balconies and see all these medics and ambulances pulling up, and there's, like, all this, like, these tents set up and stuff like that. Well, that first day, it's, like, 10 outbreaks. Then it's, like, 61. It just keeps on multiplying every day. The people on the cruise ship are like, is it in the ventilators? Is it in the air system? Like, and then the crew starts getting sick. I'm kind of, like, speeding through this, but then the crew gets sick. And so the crew has been interacting with the passengers every single day. This is the problem watching it, is that you almost kind of, like, as you're watching it, you want to blame somebody for somebody, but you also have to remember, these are the early days of the pandemic. We didn't know anything. They didn't know anything, you know? And so there's a lot of discussion about, like, should they have let him off the boat? Should they have kept him on? I mean, you could, listen, I'd have been like, you need to get me the hell off this boat, okay? But, like, everybody was just trying to, like, follow the protocol of what they were told to do. Like, halfway through the documentary, the U.S. government petitions for the, like, U.S. citizens to get off this boat, and then they send them back to the United States. Well, they're in this bus from the boat to the airport, and they haven't even, like, they tested these people, but the results aren't back yet. And it's like 4 or 5 people on the bus, maybe more than that, before they get to the airport have tested positive. And then they just, like, put them on this plane. People are coughing on the plane and getting sick. I mean, in retrospect, watching this documentary, so much of what happened at that time totally makes sense. Then they have, like, but this was the big part of it, was that Carnival Princess Cruises did not stop their cruises at this time. This was in January. They had cruises that were going out in February and March. They would not stop their cruises. They found out that a man had died that had gotten sick on one of the cruises and then died like 4 days later. Like, he tested positive on one of the cruises and then he died like 4 days later. They are quarantined on the boat when they find this out. They're like, the one couple, this older couple who had like a friend that was a senator or something, that's how they get the ball rolling on getting the people off the boat. I didn't realize, like, this one cruise ship was like such a huge deal. Like, I mean, I had never heard about this. I didn't realize it. And then it was like this super spreader event that occurred. I did not realize it. Well, then they start interviewing these other people that are not on that cruise ship, and you don't really understand why. Well, what you figure out is that they get on cruise ships because Carnival Princess doesn't shut it down. They don't shut down the cruises, okay? And so even though they're being told, like, you shouldn't be letting anybody go on these cruise ships. So these other people that they're interviewing are like, one get on a cruise ship in San Francisco. I think they're going to Hawaii. There's like 2 other cruise ships that everybody gets sick on those cruise ships too. And they quarantine them and they won't let people off and people are getting sick. And then the one cruise ship, when it gets everybody off, because they know that they're going to be taking a hiatus for like 2 months or something like that and not do any cruises, they take the crew back out on the boat and like party for like 2 or 3 days. Well, the entire crew gets sick. And then they have the crew on quarantine, and it's like 60 days on this cruise ship. And they're like, nobody's bringing them food, nobody's bringing them water. They're like throwing up TikToks and Instagram stories, begging people to come and help them, asking governments to intervene. This happened on the other ship too, that the original ship that they're talking about, I think it was called the Princess Diamond or something like that. It is so sad. You guys, I could not stop watching this documentary. Like, I was blown away. I mean, I kept on thinking to myself, what would you do in this situation? Like, you're like on this vacation, and like, the other thing was that they were told very, very little information. And like the captain would come over the air on the cruise ship, and he would like give them updates and stuff like that. But then they found out that the updates weren't even accurate, because some of these people were doing interviews, like news interviews from their cabins. The crew were told, this is why the one crew member was in disguise, which didn't make sense because nobody else was. But she said she would love to work on a cruise ship again. But I don't know why. But anyway, apparently a lot of these people are paid a lot more money on cruise ships than they would be paid at home and things like that, which that makes total sense to me. Especially people from other countries. They talked about like how much they get paid on cruise ships versus that. And so they can't really afford not to work on these cruise ships. And so if they're offered that opportunity. But what you find out is that these people start doing like news interviews, and they're sending out TikTok videos and stuff like that. And what they find out is that what the captain's telling them is not like, he's telling them like 60 people are infected, and they're finding out in these news interviews, it's like 268 people. They're like, what? And it's like doubling every day. Also, the crew, this is what I was going to say, the crew is not allowed to put up anything on social media about what's going on, or they will lose their jobs immediately. And they are like, we need our jobs, so like we can't, and they do. Some of them do start speaking out, and they're like, we need help, because they're taking care of the passengers, but they're not taking care of the crew. You know, and I think the hard thing about this is, in watching it, like, it's the early days of the pandemic. Nobody had any idea what anybody was doing. Nobody knew, you know? And then it brings in politics to it, and there's this whole conversation about politics and cruises, and this one guy says, I think he works for like the CDC or something like that. He has to go over this cruise ship, and he says, anytime that politics and, I can't remember what he says, politics and health mix, politics are going to win. And he says, so it got this very confusing thing. It was basically like all these power plays, and what are we going to do and what are we not going to do? It just was sad. It was sad for all these people involved. I honestly thought, and this did not happen, but I thought at the end of the documentary, we were going to find out that like 5 or 6 people that had been on the cruise ship had like died, that were like, that they had interviewed or something like in the past. Like, I thought one of these guys or something like that. I don't know. Like, that didn't happen, and they all were like interviewed and whatever. One of the hardest parts were these students that were studying in China. Like, I think 2 of them were from Poland and the other 2 were from the United States. And so the guys from the United States got to go home, but the other guys had to stay on the cruise ship. That was like really hard to watch because a lot of people had to stay on the cruise ship because if you weren't like a US citizen, they were flying everybody back. And I'm thinking in my head too, like, I mean, this is in January, right? Like, I remember that year, as many of us do. Like, we didn't know a whole lot in January, you know? I don't know. The whole thing was so sad, but I'm telling you right now, this was a binge-worthy documentary. Like I said, it's only like, let me see if it says on here how long it is. It's only like an hour, and it doesn't say, but it's only like an hour and 28 minutes or something like that. I thought it was fantastically done. It's heartfelt. And it just was really interesting because I didn't know a lot about this case. So it's called Hell of a Cruise. It is on, let me see if it's on Peacock, but I think there's other places you can watch it too. It's on Peacock and Amazon Prime. So go check that out if you haven't seen it. Recommend any documentaries to me, old or new, in the comment section below, and I will watch them. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.